You're listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental.
TMZ, oh my goodness.
I mean, what are we doing here?
I think he's the philosopher of football.
It's great that everyone can give their opinion.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Find me. Find me. I don't care anymore. So drain my bank account.
Everybody up here, every single day, goes into the office, into the laboratory, to try to cook up some great stuff for you guys.
That's why he's here.
Oh, from New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental from the MLS studios in Midtown Manhattan. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Bobby Warshaw, and we have huge transfer news, breaking transfer news.
Announce it.
What?
Announce
Susannah
it.
Collins joins Extra Time for a record fee.
I have been waiting for this call-up my entire life.
Call up?
Yes.
You're getting paid for this. I mean,
Yeah.
your agent drove a hard bargain. I thought we were just going to get you maybe on a free, maybe on trial.
It's a lesson for all you kids out there. Know your worth.
Exactly.
No, you guys, I'm so excited to be here.
He was the main negotiator. It was tough.
I'm pretty excited because with Doyle gone, I got picked first as his partner in soccer.
Oh.
Wow.
Boom, upgrade.
Part of the contract is that Susannah is going to not outshine us with her apparel anymore. Bobby Warshaw in the white tee. I didn't want to say anything, Bobby, but had to call you out.
Yeah, I know. We're all Team Adidas over here. Look at that.
Yeah,
obviously.
Three-stripe life. How do you feel? What are the feelings here? This is your opening.
No,
press conference.
this is honestly, this is really exciting. I'm not kidding. I did like a lot of prep work last night. I feel like this is the moment. You know, you get that call up, you want to take advantage of it, and I feel like I've graduated to the adult table.
Wow.
You know,
I don't think you've been listening to these shows.
That's how I feel. That's how I'm approaching.
In fairness, I've never listened to one of these shows, so I don't really know what the show sounds like.
Can I tell you guys, I had a 2-hour journey to JFK last week, and guess what I watched and listened to? All y'all.
Is it going to be a problem for you if you're now on the show and we're now eliminating some of that listening time for you?
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Just a slight disruption to your daily
We'll
life.
make it work.
My main worry is
I'm not
that the
worried.
residual feelings of going to JFK and this show's connections are going to come out at some point in this show,
Probably.
because that's the worst experience in the world.
It wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of
It's not
bitterness.
fun.
We are
You guys
so
made it better,
excited.
though.
We're so excited to have you, Susannah. When is she is available? She has a very busy schedule. She's in demand. She will be on this show every single Thursday, so hit us up. If you
I'm
have
so
questions
excited.
just for Susannah, you can send them to us, 401-2060-MLS,
Bring
extra time
it.
at MLSsoccer.com.
Bring it.
Big show coming up here for you right now. Our collective CCL fever. I'm not going to say it's broken, but it's on the brink of being broken. 4 losses in 4 games for MLS and Concacaf Champions League in the first leg of the quarterfinals. We're going to dig into that. The Bird Dog, Sam Stejskal, is going to be here in just 1 second to look ahead to the rest of the primary transfer window. Major League Soccer clubs are not done making moves. They still have a couple months to do that. We're going to get you ready for MLS Week 2. We have real soccer to talk about. It's a great thing. Also, joined by Nashville SC head coach Gary Smith in the second segment. And then in the mailbag, what is the highlight?
We have many highlights.
We have a breakdown of our crest.
We do have a breakdown of our
That's
crest,
good.
which I'm sorry to say is embarrassing that we hadn't already put out.
Exactly.
We've got our DP signing made, cornerstone of our franchise, and we don't even have an explanation of how the 47-degree angle on our crest represents all 47 degrees of success we plan on having.
Exactly. It's time to get into it. CCL fever, we love it. We hate it. It hurts us. It's painful. Adam Julian on Twitter kind of summed it up, and I'm just going to read his tweet verbatim because I think it's pretty fitting. I cannot understand why I do this each year. It defies all logic and reason. Free space is always disappointment, yet every year in February, I do it to myself again. I can't quit you, CCL. Sadly, I'll do it again next year. I need help. I have CCL fever. 9-1 on aggregate. That was the scoreline for MLS clubs in CCL fever. The only club to score a goal is Sporting Kansas City, and that was from the PK spot on what was sort of, kind of, maybe a little bit of a dodgy penalty. 7-0 against Liga MX opposition. It feels a little bit, guys, like 2015, 2016 all over again. If I have to remind you, that was the season in which it was 4v4, MLS versus Liga MX. 4 Liga MX teams went through. They won 15-5.
You didn't have to remind us.
On aggregate. Well, I'm reminding you regardless. Let's just start here, I guess. Dave, were we naive to think that this might be the year? Did we oversell MLS's chances in this competition?
True fandom is born out of pain. It's born out of misery. This is what being a fan is. No, were we naive? I don't think so, because I think this has been the reality, as you said, the entire time. But we had hope, and I can say I went to Red Bull Arena. They played well. I think they outplayed Santos, which wasn't something you could really ever say before 2018. So, no, we weren't naive. We knew that Houston was up against it. We knew that Atlanta, who was probably the best team, was up against it. And SKC, we're going to get into it more. I don't know how bad it was. So, no, we weren't naive. We just are hopeful, and that means our hopes will be crushed year after year after year.
The thing to remember, I think, is that this isn't like we like to make this a Liga MX versus MLS conversation, and it is in a lot of ways. But you also have to remember that it is the cream of the crop in Liga MX versus the cream of the crop in MLS. And while MLS has taken big steps and they went 3 for 3 or 3 of 6 last year against Liga MX and didn't win the title, of course, that doesn't yet mean that our best teams are at the same level as Monterrey or Tigres or even Santos Laguna in some ways. I mean, I know Red Bull has had a great performance, but they didn't have a great result. And that has been for many years the defining characteristic of so much in this competition. Maybe 15 minutes of good soccer, and then the result doesn't go your way. Or there's 15 minutes where Liga MX pours it on. Like, I'm not all that surprised. I feel like we build ourselves up. We're like, oh, man, Montreal Impact, they made it to the final. They almost won it. We're doing this next year. And then you have 4 teams lose the Liga MX. Last year, Toronto FC make a run. Seattle are pretty good. Here comes the Red Bulls. We're going to do it again this year. These teams are better. Doesn't really matter when you get into the actual nitty-gritty. I mean, we're disappointed, but there's a reason Susannah Free Space is disappointment.
Yeah. No, I mean, but I think we've got to be realistic here. Can I just say one thing?
Bring us back down to earth.
No, I want to. I feel like my role here today is going to be the voice of reason. I need to be the voice of reason for you guys because, people are panicking about Atlanta right now. And yeah, no, did we want them to win? Did we expect them to do better? Of course, but can we just keep in mind for 1 second that they lost their head coach? They lost their best player. It is not going to magically come together in an instant. This season just started. This group has not been playing together all that long. I am not surprised that it hasn't looked as good of a product as we've seen from them. I am not worried, however. There's a ton of talent on that team. I believe in what they're doing. But people are, it was so much doom and gloom, especially last night, too. And I was just like, people, come on. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and to kick off the back of that, MLS isn't in a place where you can really have holes. Like, if guys are hurt, MLS doesn't have the roster to cover. Like, Rodolfo Pizarro came off the bench yesterday. He would be one of the most expensive players in MLS for Monterrey. And Atlanta's starting Breck Shea and Mikey Ambrose on the wings, who didn't play well and were out of their depths. And you have a new coach in a new system, which hasn't really hit the ground running, but it's a tough thing to do. And you're replacing PT with Almiron, who's never played with these guys before. So it's still in a situation where you need most things going right for MLS teams to win. What Toronto did last year, I think, was a bit of an outlier. Even New York, because Kaku hadn't come in and all that stuff, and Toronto had the injuries, but you still need most things going right, which I think goes to the Montreal point, which isn't, oh, we're one step closer. Everything's situational. Montreal goes in, they get a good goal in leg 1, it sets you up for leg 2, you can play it. It's not like MLS teams can go in with everything against them and still win in these situations.
I want to add on to what Susannah said. Susannah, I'm like you. I just don't know what to make of these games and how to take anything out of it. You take Houston, for example, right? There's this general feeling that MLS clubs blew it or it was a horrible week. But if you actually look a little closer, Houston made it until the 78th minute against Tigres, and they looked fantastic, right? They weren't going to run off the field. Houston was phenomenal. You get to the 80th minute, they give up 2 goals, tie is probably over. Atlanta, at Monterrey, it's 1-0 until, again, about the 80th? The 70th minute, yep. They're perfectly in the game. They weren't dominating, but they weren't getting run off the field either. They are in that game. Then all of a sudden, they bottle it. Is that the right word? In the last 20.
Yeah,
a little bit with Red Bulls. Red Bulls were the better team in that game. They just didn't take their finishes. So as much as I want to scream and yell and say, what is going on? How did this happen? There's also have to be some perspective of what actually did happen. where were MLS teams competitive, if not the better team, and where did it go wrong? And that's what I'm struggling to make sense of and analyze.
So you're saying that those days of, let's say, Santos Laguna, because it's fresh on my mind, the teams of Darwin Quintero and Hercules Gomez and so many others, just wiping the floor with MLS, like 6-0 beatdowns, those days might be over. But my point, I guess, is that because that gap still remains, it's that 15 minutes. You know, you can do it for 75. If you're the Dynamo, you're right there. You're not giving an inch. Every 50-50, you're challenging, and Tigres can't take advantage, even though, by the way, they didn't have Gignac, so that's a different question entirely. It's just that even that 3-minute span that gets you in the end.
And that's what actually, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that is where you take this conversation and where it is relevant to SKC. Yes, SKC lost 2-1 in Panama. Phenomenal performance by SKC. They did every single thing right. Vermees changing the lineup, the way they just stayed in the game. You take Toronto, for example, when they go down to Panama and lose 4-0. If they had kept it at 2-0, they would have been fine. They absolutely dominated.
Or scored an away goal.
They absolutely dominated Independiente at home in Toronto on a horrible field. Part of this experience of going to CCL and growing up as a league and a soccer nation is understanding you can't win every battle. You manage certain battles. You stay alive so you can throw a punch the next time. SKC did that. And I think the most frustrating part of this is that Houston and Atlanta and Red Bulls, maybe not Red Bulls, that's a different scenario, but Houston and Atlanta were so close to doing that and just didn't understand the task at hand in CCL. So my hat goes off to SKC, and maybe we can break this down a little more, but I thought they were the shining example of how an MLS team does one of these two leg ties.
Okay, let's start with Atlanta, and we'll give this a little bit more detail here for folks at home. So Frank de Boer arrives, of course, and he had some interesting quotes leading up to this game about the difference in culture between Mexico and the U.S. We won't dig into those, but you should go find those and read those. The 3-4-3, that is his preferred formation. It has yielded mixed results. You're right, Bobby. 1-0 would have been a brilliant result. 1-0 is not the result. It is 3-0, and it was 2 goals late on, 79th minute and on, that killed them. Does the 3-4-3 work for this team? Why isn't it working for this team? What's wrong with Atlanta? Because I think Susannah jumped on the exact right point there, which is we couldn't expect the team that did it in MLS Cup to be the team that shows up now in the back end of preseason, and that's an excuse I don't want to make, but without the same personnel. It's not the same. It can't be the same, right?
We keep on using this phrase, the 3-4-3, and that is an oversimplification of what's happening because it's a 5-4-1, right? It's the same 5-4-1 that they played for large stretch, mostly in the playoffs last year, that teams around the world, around Major League Soccer do defensively. Like, that's not De Boer trying to outthink himself. On the ball, then it switches to maybe a 3-4-3, but that's literally what every team around the world does. They either drop a center midfielder, or they have 3 defenders, they push the outside backs high, they have the wingers tuck in. Like, this shape is not unique. I mean, they still have the exact same numbers behind the ball, the exact same numbers wide, and the exact same numbers in the middle of the field. So to me, this conversation on the 3-4-3 is a total red herring in trying to make something out of a sample size that is just entirely unreliable. I mean, at Costa Rica, at Monterrey, and at DC with Monterrey looming. So, Andrew, I understand the thought process, but I think if you examine a little closer, it's a red herring.
Central midfield. That felt like the issue for me last night. And I don't want to jump on Eric Rometti. I don't want to jump on Darlington Nagbe. And I know the outside backs did not play up to their capability. But if you look at those last 2 goals, it's too easy for Monterrey, and Monterrey don't have the advantage there on numbers. It's too easy the space that they create. It's too easy the moments where someone dives in or someone doesn't track, and when you have those moments, you get punished. And Sporting Kansas City had those moments as well. When you watch Kai, you can't help but root for them, Susannah, and I know that's weird because we're on the MLS side, but I can't help but root for these guys. In their bandbox of a stadium, which looks like it would be awesome to be at. They're vibing.
It's a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if MLS teams have to go out, I want it to be to a team like Kai because it's exciting and it's fun to watch and watching their fan base get pumped and behind this team. I mean, you kind of wonder if it's one of these things where it's like, is it just their year? You know, is SKC just unlucky? And that this is the team that they're coming up against because we saw them manhandle Toronto. We saw what they were able to do. And mind you, Toronto maybe not as good of a team as SKC, but certainly you can't ignore what they did in the round of 16. So I think maybe we downplayed them a little bit. This is not an easy team to beat.
No. And they score bangers. And can someone sign Brownie?
Yeah. But that's one of the things that you see in this tournament all the time, right? This is a chance for these guys to prove themselves because they are looking for that next contract. They are looking to get to Liga MX. They are looking to get to MLS. But I think Bobby mentioned with TFC, I know SKC, you would like to see them be ahead already, but I'm not worried about them going through. Obviously, of the four, they're basically the only one you feel like has a shot right now. But I also actually feel pretty confident about the performance they can put on at home against this team. It's been a fun run, but I disagree. Go MLS. Every MLS run is a Cinderella run.
I'm definitely not cheering for Kai, but I do think that another factor is these guys, it's been such a grind for them the last 2 weeks. Such a grind. And I was in LA watching Sporting Kansas City against LAFC. These guys are tired, man. This is a lot of travel that they have had to do. And Peter Vermes, it's like he can't win. When people were upset that he didn't, switch up the roster against LAFC. He put his starting 11 out there. People will question that, and then he comes and makes all these moves for CCL, and it didn't work out the way they wanted. It's a tall task. This is tough. CCL is so hard. The time of year, it's early on in MLS season. You're trying to balance priorities. I think that I'm not panicking about SKC, as Gus mentioned. I think that they are the one team that I would have the most confidence in.
Yeah.
And I trust Peter Vermes, you guys.
It feels a little bit like maybe the Atlanta series against Herediano, where they go down and maybe have a result that they don't love, but a decent performance. I think better from Kansas City than Atlanta in Central America. And then they come home and they handle business. We'll see about them next week. They're certainly in the best position. 2-1 winners, got that away goal from the PK spot. The Red Bulls, we kind of talked a little bit about them, but I want to ask this question. Is this classic Red Bulls?
Don't do it.
Is this so Metro, or is this a different strain of Red Bulls disappointment?
It's a different strain. I went to this game, and
it was cold, Gus.
It was cold.
I saw
really
your
cold.
Insta post.
I had to get all the French fries because it was the only warm thing I could put in me. It wasn't classic Red Bulls, because classic Red Bulls is either one, being completely naive of the moment, not understanding their role, which I don't think they did, and the other is an inability to create chances. And that's like the Red Bull fan banging his head on the seat, at the end of MLS playoffs because they bring in Anatola Bong in the 75th minute and Sasha Kleston's curling crosses in from the top of the 18 because they can't break a team down, because they don't know how to create chances. That wasn't this. They had 3 should-score chances in the first half. Connor Lade had one in the second half. They had 4 or 5 half chances. Some died on Alex Muel's foot, which is going to happen. Some, you had some good saves or set pieces that you didn't win that 50-50 that you hoped to win, but they played the right way. They outplayed Santos easily in this game. You give up a goal at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. That is tough. Those are tough moments to give up those goals, and they were all against the run of play. But New York Red Bulls were the better team in this game, and they were the better team in a way that we don't normally see them lose in the playoffs. And so I disagree with anyone who's saying that's so Metro and classic. At the same time, the all-time leading goal scorer doesn't finish, put through 1v1, which is exactly what you have him there for.
And those moments set the tone, right? The moments when you miss set the tone. And then all of a sudden, you have the one half chance here for Santos, and Aaron Long gets unbalanced. Tim Parker comes out. Space is created. Lashes it home, and the game changes. And you have to be better at the beginning of the second half. And I don't know if it's an intentional pass or not on that second goal. If it is, it's one of the best passes I've ever seen in my life. Just the quality of that touch is astounding to me. Either way, it's 2-0 Santos. It's 2-0 Tigres. The Houston Dynamo, as I said, they stood toe-to-toe. Wilmer Cabrera said it. We're the underdogs. We know we're the underdogs. We got to play like the underdogs, and I thought they did a great job of that without their number 10, without Albert Elise on form, without a lot of things. And without Juan David Cabezas, who's maybe their most important player. We'll see. Going to El Monumental was tough. Going to El Volcan is very tough. I mean, it's all very difficult for MLS, and we're in the same spot. And you know what? They're second legs. We'll find out, I guess, what happens here. Let's change gears real quick. Sam Stejskal is on the line now. He's doing his reporting, doing his thing. He's a national writer for MLSsoccer.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Sam Stejskal. Sam, let's get right into it right now. Nico Gaitan for the Fire. There's also a center back rumored. What is going on with Chicago?
Yeah, so the Fire, of course, were reported by me and several others to be after Nico Gaitan. He's playing for Chinese club Dalian Yifeng. We reported last week that the Fire were closing in on a deal. As far as I understand, source told me yesterday that deal is still progressing. They're still working on getting that done. They're also after a Swedish center back to help on the back line. Joakim Nielsen reported that one last week as well. Again, same sort of situation, still working towards it. Not totally clear whether that deal would be used with targeted allocation money or not. The Gaetan one would use targeted allocation money. The Fire already have 3 DPs who can't be bought. He'd have to be a TAM player.
Looking at DPs, we're hearing the Revs are still looking for one. We've talked to you about the Timbers. What's your updates on those two?
Yeah, so the Revs are certainly trying to get another one in addition to Carles Heel, who they signed earlier this offseason. Brad Friedel has been pretty adamant that they're going to sign one. In terms of timing, they want to get it done sooner rather than later, from what I'm told. But, it's not a huge rush. The priority is to get the right fit, the right guy. So if it takes another month, another 2 months maybe before the primary window closes on May 7th, the main priority is to get the right guy at the right price for the Revs. For Portland, it's been pretty public that they've been after a DP striker these last couple of months here. Julian Quiñones from Tigres, Edu Vargas from Tigres, both reported targets, both were targets. They made offers on both. Neither obviously got done. They're still searching. It's not going to be either one of those guys at this point, but they do want to get somebody in the primary transfer window, a new DP striker. Who that ends up being, what that price ends up being, we'll see. But they do want to get it done before May 7th, although they feel confident enough that if they have to wait until the summer, they can. But the strong preference is to get it done before the primary window closes.
Timbers fans, I know, are following that one pretty nervously right now. Let's talk TAM. Everybody's got it burning a hole in their pockets. In particular, it seems, NYCFC and Toronto. What are they looking for?
Yeah, so NYCFC are searching for a striker. They were very much in on Ola Kamara before he was sold to China, made a big offer for him, a significant offer for him. I'm told that they were confident that they were actually going to get him. That obviously didn't end up coming through. They do have some TAM available, though. So they're looking internationally, trying to get a number 9, which won't be a huge surprise to anyone who saw Maxi Morales play out of position as a center striker in Orlando on Saturday. Not to knock on him. He's a great player. But yeah, anyway, and then in terms of Toronto, obviously they got Pozuelo done earlier this week. Huge for them. With him, he needs some speed around him in order to be kind of at his best. So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a winger or potentially 2 to use TAM on. So it could be 1 winger with TAM. It could be 1 winger and a defender with TAM, or it could be 2 wingers with TAM. They're still kind of going through the process there in terms of who it's going to be, who their targets are, what offers they're going to make. And so we'll see how it shakes out. But Toronto definitely do have some TAM to burn, and they need some speed on the wing. So I expect that'll be kind of the top priority for them.
Still a couple months here in this primary transfer window. All the news, everything shaking. You can get it from Sam Stejskal on Twitter or MLSsoccer.com. At Sam Stejskal, go give him a follow. He is criminally underfollowed. Sam, I'm so happy to see your beautiful face, man. Have a great day.
Thanks, Booby. You too.
You didn't love that at the end there, Dave. You thought that was a dig on Sam. It wasn't. Just like Bobby Warshaw needs more followers, so does Sam. He's the
Bobby,
bird
how
dog.
do you feel about your follower count?
I don't know what the 10,000 of them are really looking for in life.
That sounds like the most Bobby answer.
Yeah,
to that
it does.
question
It does.
ever.
All right, let's talk about MLS Week 2. We're already in Week 2. The season, I'm sure, will be just go by before our eyes here. If you want all the TV listings, all the news, everything, you know where to get it. MLSsoccer.com. Of course, set your fantasy lineup. I'm telling that to you and all of you guys as well, but it's mostly a reminder for me. That's usually how I do it, huh, Dave? I tell you to do something because I need to remember to do it.
100%.
Yep. 80 points this week.
It's really nice.
Let's start with Dallas LA on Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Univision and Twitter. FC Dallas are trolling Zlatan, which always works out really well.
Yeah,
it
definitely feels like a bad idea.
Yeah, you should definitely troll Zlatan, especially after you sold his jersey in your stadium last year. I'm just saying. You benefited off the man. Now you're coming back and trolling him. There's a theme going here. I want to jump into some news, though, with LA. Joe Corona from Club Tijuana, where he's been with Oscar Pareja, free transfer to the LA Galaxy. He said a couple weeks or months ago that he wanted to come to MLS. Well, now it's happened. He will be on a TAM deal. You remember him from the U.S. national team, likely to play a number 8. You would think that midfield would shake out first choice, something like Jonah Dos Santos, Joe Corona next to him, and then probably Sebastian Lletget up in front. And then, as we'll talk about in the mailbag, maybe a little Efren Alvarez coming in to spell some of those guys. Bobby, what does this signing mean for LA? Andy Smith on Twitter asked us whether or not our predictions for the Galaxy would change with this signing.
I don't know how much it changes my prediction of them. I still think they're the 4th or 5th best team in the West, with LAFC, SKC, and Seattle probably ahead of them. What I find interesting with the Joe Corona, to add some context, is that Guillermo Schelotto at Boca Juniors often did not play with a natural 10. He played with something similar to a combative 3 in the middle, where they're all passers, they can all defend, they can all cover ground, which is just funny to think about, isn't it? Schelotto, one of the best number 10s in league history, one of the best number 10s in Boca history, deploys a team without that natural guy. So there's a thought that maybe Joe Corona just fits into the rotation and they still go find a 10, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's their first choice midfield with Lletget, Dos Santos, and Corona, and just 3 players that can do a little bit of everything.
Which I like, because you can rotate. You don't know where it's going to come from. If you can create a system where everyone starts to understand each other, at any moment in the game, Jonah can be the one pushing through, Lletget can be the one pushing through, the other 2 can cover, and it changes, what angles you're coming from. But the other thing is just like youth. Like, this is an old team. This was an old team last year. Joe Corona is an in-your-prime professional soccer player, borderline U.S. national team player. So you're going to get more miles out of his legs. You're going to be able to protect Lletget a little bit more. And with Alessandrini out, Lletget and Corona are both guys that can go to the wing. So you just have more versatility. You have more quality in your team. And the other player that someone brought up was Adil Rami, where there's a rumor they're going to bring him in. I'm not a huge fan of his game, but once again, at times last year, it felt like there was not great players on the field, so more talent is better than less talent.
You were in LA. You saw this team up close and personal in week 1, that win against Chicago.
Yeah.
What did you see from LA last week? What do you expect to see from them this week, Susannah?
Well, it was different. Tale of 2 halves, really, for me, because Chicago looked really, really good in that first half. I mean, if they could have finished some of those chances, the final third was their big issue. But I was like, oh man, is this the same defensive woes that we're going to see for LA Galaxy? I was kind of like, wah, wah. It felt a little bit like that. And then I give a huge amount of credit to Schelotto for bringing in Efren Alvarez, because he really kind of changed the entire complexion of the game, brought a lot of energy, and suddenly there was a belief, that first goal, that beautiful little chip that Stera's just pounded in there. All of a sudden, they looked like a different team. And so, you think about the loss of a guy like Gio Dos Santos and bringing in Joe Corona. It's not a move that was like, wow, this is a game changer. But you kind of mentioned it, Gus. This is a quality player, and they have a lot of quality players on that roster. So collectively, I think they're going to be competitive. I'm kind of in line with Bobby, where I don't foresee them really competing for the top 2 spots in the West. I think they're probably more of like a 4 or 5, but they're going to be hard to beat. And especially if you can overcome, let's face it, it was a bad first half for them against Chicago. I liked the character that I saw.
It turns out I just looked back, because it's been 2 weeks. I already forgot. I picked them 10th in the West.
Oh!
Feels aggressive with the moves they've made, but I'm going to stand by it.
Okay, you got to stand by it. You made the prediction. Zlatan was not the Zlatan we expect in that match. We will see if the trolling does him any good. He is in Dallas with the Galaxy at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. You can watch on Univision as well as on MLS's Twitter. That is free. No money required to watch that match, so go check that out. Atlanta FC Cincinnati goes down on Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. There are also 2 games at 3 p.m. Eastern, both those on MLS Plus. We'll talk about that in just a second with our ESPN Plus game of the week. MLS Live, ESPN Plus, it's all melding together in my mind. My big question for you guys is, after a 4-1 loss in week 1 in Seattle, Cincinnati now goes to Atlanta. They're home against Portland, which I will be at and I'm pumped for. They're at New England. They're home against Philly. They're home against Sporting Kansas City. They're at LA. They're home against RSL. All these are playoff teams from last year. At New York Red Bulls after that. At Philly. I mean, it's like...
You're just reading off
that's their whole
schedule.
I know. I get it. But the point is, these are all quality opponents. When do they get their first win? What's it going to take to get their first win?
I'll take it. No,
Yeah,
you don't want to. No, I'll take it. No, listen, they need to tighten their lines defensively. I mean, you think about the way teams are constructed around Major League Soccer. Every team, if done in any remotely capable way, which I still think FC Cincinnati have been, has an it factor. Whether it's your ability to go on the break like Portland, whether, I guess, same for Atlanta, whether it's your ability to play through Nico Ladero. Cincinnati's it factor is their aerial ability of their center defenders. Air Haglund, Kendall Waston are phenomenal in the air. That should be how they build their game plan and how they control a game. You can hit as many crosses into our box as you want, especially when you add on Darren Maddox, Roland Lamont, Kakuta Mane, Fernando Adi, these players that can hit you on the break. So simple. Don't draw such a high line, retreat, keep teams in front of you and outside of you, soak up the crosses, and then hit them with these excellent players on the break. To me, it's very simple. I don't blame them for coming out and playing adventurous, trying to make a statement to say, hey, MLS, we're not going to be scared of everyone. Statement made. Good for you. Tighten up your lines, soak up crosses into the box, and get out on the run.
And you see in expansion MLS, when you go home the first time, the first two times, the energy's there, the environment's there, teams play up to that level. I mean, we went to the opener of Audi Field last year, and DC just was in a bad way the whole season. Rooney had joined, but hadn't played yet.
Yeah, no, it was his first
and they went out and won, and it's just like these moments where the players seem to step up to the environment and everything that happens. And I agree with Bobby. There is a blueprint for it to work for FC Cincinnati, or what they want to do. And so lean into that blueprint, especially when you go home and you have those moments where a guy's capable of something one-off maybe, and that's kind of how they're going to have to score goals a lot of times. The other thing is Kenny Safe comes in now. Kakuta Mane is starting to find his legs. Like, if you can have a little bit more attacking ability, I think it takes pressure off of the fullbacks to feel like they have to get as high, of Alan Koch to feel like he has to play more numbers higher up the field, because you potentially have individuals who can create things out of nothing.
So you've been the voice of reason, and I expect that you may continue to be that, Susannah. For those FC Cincinnati fans out there that saw that first result, that maybe got a little bit down in the dumps, what's the voice of reason say about the Cincinnati start?
Well, I mean, there were positives to take away. I mean, I know it doesn't feel like that after a 4-1 loss, but, their opening goal was amazing. And for like 20 minutes, they looked really, really good. And Seattle had not figured them out that. So, it's always going to be tough in your first MLS game, your first season. You've got to be patient. I mean, like, it's very hard to do what an Atlanta did, you have to have, face it, you have to have the money to do it. You have to build these rosters. They're still figuring things out. So I think you just have to draw on the positives and expand from that. And I think they're going to do that. I like the fact that they're going to be at home soon. I think that, being back in Cincinnati in front of their very, very passionate fan base that is already in place is going to give them a lot of energy. It's just, we talked a lot about it in the season previews about them. I mean, I don't think that this is a playoff team, in year one. And so you just have to be realistic. Take
small victories.
Small victories, piece by piece, day by day.
Yeah. Build on those.
Yes.
You got your second chance to do it. 5 p.m. Eastern in Atlanta. What better opportunity to just experience the league as well, to have this amazing moment, of which there will be many down the line, but we'll see what FC Cincinnati looks like against Atlanta United off the back of that CCL disappointment. That one's on ESPN at 5 p.m. Eastern. The weekend ends at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1. LAFC Portland, 2 straight games at Banc of California Stadium. After this, we will be in the studio right here. It'll be a little more polished, I think, but 10 p.m. Eastern, MLS Matchday Central, all the highlights, news, analysis.
You guys did
week
great.
2. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yes.
You did amazing as well. We could just trade a lot.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, we could trade a lot of compliments back and forth here. But I know, Suze, if we're talking about predictions,
oh lordy,
that you made a prediction, and your MLS Cup prediction
I did.
Was the Portland Timbers.
Yeah.
And they had 2 straight road games to start, which they'll have many more of those as they wait for Providence Park to open. 3-3 in the snow. Probably throw that one out. Mm-hmm. What are you looking for in this game?
No, I mean, that's the thing. I want everybody to just calm down a little bit, because that game against the Rapids was wild. Like, you have to throw everything you thought completely out the window when you watch a game like that. 18 degrees in the middle of a blizzard, and some of those goals, it was just like, this isn't This isn't how it works. This is not what we are.
Really
this is not what we're going to see. Are you
ways,
disappointed to drop 2 points at home? Okay, sure, or lose 2 points on the road, fine. But it's going to feel more like a loss for Portland. But honestly, the fact that they collected a point on the road is important. And as you mentioned, they have a tough stretch with Providence Park undergoing the renovations. If they can go to LA and get a point on the road, I'm going to feel really good about the start of this season. My one issue is that I wanted to see more of Jeremy Ebobisse. I felt like he was kind of a non-factor in that game, and that could be because of the weather conditions. Yeah. That could have played into it, but for me, for Portland, he needs to be an integral part of that attack, and so I want to see him more involved. But for LAFC as well, they played Sporting Kansas City last week. Portland, another team that I expect to contend in the West. If they can get these 2 wins, I know it's early on, but that's just going to be a huge 6 points for them to collect against 2 really good Western Conference opponents. So I'm excited for this one.
Little context on this road streak to start the season. Last year, DC United through 10 games, 9 points. The Seattle Sounders through 10 games, 8 points. So think about that as a measurement for what Portland wants to achieve throughout the first 10 games, and that every point is huge.
I think they'll think that they have a better roster, a better, kind of ethos to what they want to do than DC did last year, and that they should be at a better level than that. We shall see.
They're still talking about bringing in a big name DP,
which is even more important for Ebobisse to sit there and be like, no,
come on, young Prince, take your throne. Let's go, Ebo.
All right, before we go to break and get to Gary Smith of Nashville SC, I need your ESPN Plus game of the week, and since you are riled up, Dave,
boom.
Get at it.
This gets me less riled up, but Chicago-Orlando, first game of the weekend coming up. As Susannah said it, I thought Chicago was really good in the first game. The one piece they had coming back from last year that you could lock in on is Nemanja Nikolic. The guy's going to score goals. He wasn't in there, and they created, I think, 4 or 5 easy chances where in the box, they kind of got lazy, like it was already in. And if he's there, he's lethal. It changes the game. They win that game. They're still talking about bringing in a center back, but otherwise, I thought Mihailovic controlled the game. Midfield looked good. And Frankowski was a revelation for me in that he can do something that no one else on the team does, stretches the field in a different direction, in a different way, and just gave everyone else room to play in. So looking forward to this one. And then Nani.
Yeah.
He's a winger, but he's going to play as a 10. Is he a winger? Whatever it is. So Dom Dwyer didn't start in the last game either, so it'll be fun to watch these two.
I didn't know Goss was a side performer as a hype man for Chicago Fire.
I'm buying in.
Let's go.
You get that hand on the shoulder, then Dave gets ramped up, Bobby?
Oh, my goodness.
I'm Frankowski. I'm Frankowski Hive.
Nice. What are you watching, Bobby?
I'm watching NYCFC hosting DC United. DC United, the team of the weekend, just the best team on week 1. And I'm so excited to see what NYCFC do. I know that there's a lot of questions about them. How are they going to set up? But there's still a ton of potential, especially in that attacking core. So I'm going to keep a close eye on that one.
Susannah?
I like it. San Jose against Minnesota.
Oh.
Number 1, Wando watch. Hello. We're still on it. Still could happen. We're waiting. But also Minnesota picking up their first road win against Western Conference team last week against Vancouver. Let's see. Ever.
This is a really good way for them to do it twice.
It is.
Like, this is the perfect start for them.
Right?
Schedule-wise.
Exactly.
To break records.
Listen, let's start new trends, Minnie. Let's do it, Loons. I'm excited.
I like it. I want to see how Iko Para performs in his second. I also just love watching Darwin Quintero. He's one of my favorite players in this league. I am going to be watching Seattle, Colorado, because, look, Seattle have an opportunity here at home to go 2 for 2 to get 6 points, to get on top. Raul Ruiz, Nico Lodero, Victor Rodriguez, Jordan Morris. It might be the best attacking front 4 in the league if Victor Rodriguez keeps playing the way he did in that game in week 1.
Also, Axel Huber got a red card. So
he did. That's an issue for Colorado.
Yep.
But hey, look, you had him in the playoffs, right, Bobby?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
You had him in the playoffs? This is an opportunity. Prove yourselves.
I mean, they already destroyed her MLS Cup favorite week 1 in the snow.
Exactly.
Now go to Seattle, ruin Anders' life, our director, producer.
Before we go to break here, meteorologist Chris Bianchi, who you probably remember from back in the day at MLSsoccer.com, said that actually only 1 to 2 inches of snow fell.
Weeby eyeballed it.
City.
That was a blizzard.
We eyeballed it. That was at least 4 inches.
Weeby's a big eyeball guy.
You know what? My eyes don't lie. We're going to break. On the other side, Gary Smith, the new coach of Nashville SC.
Are you watching the games or just looking at the stats? Email the show at extratime@MLSsoccer.com, tweet at Extratime, or text the Hot Take Hotline with any questions or reactions.
One of the things that certainly stood out to me in that process was that, Gary's the kind of coach who is never happier, in my opinion, than when he's in his tracksuit out on the training field. And I think we were fortunate to get to see that, to get to see Gary interacting with our current squad of players.
Driven by Continental, you just heard Ian Ayre describe why they hired Gary Smith as the first head coach in MLS for Nashville SC. He coached last year the USL team. They lost in the quarterfinals to FC Cincinnati in the USL Cup playoffs. This is Smith's second stint in Major League Soccer. Of course, he coached the Rapids from 2008 to 2011, won MLS Cup in 2010. He's on the line now. Gary, thanks for joining us on Extra Time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to speak to everyone.
Thank you. Now, look, there could have been some uncertainty, some limbo for you this year between USL and MLS. Instead, you've got peace of mind, you've got security. This is your team now and in 2020. What does that mean to you, and were you a little surprised that it took this long to get back to MLS, given you're an MLS Cup winner?
There's a lot to talk about there, and I don't think we've got enough time to dig into everything, but absolutely delighted that the opportunity is there for me to move forward with the club, first and foremost. To be able to move with whatever group we're going to take with us and to be part of the current staff and the planning from now on out is a real benefit, I think, not just for me but for everyone around. It certainly gives us a really nice platform and a run-up in towards 2020. We've got some terrific bodies in the building here already, on and off the field. And if we concentrate just about the group, there's players here that are going to be using this season as a little bit of an opportunity to show what they're about. I, along with Mike Jacobs, have brought all these players into the club. So therefore, I would suspect that they see this as the best opportunity to make the jump towards MLS. With regards to your second part of your question, of course, I think every coach wants to be at the top level. Having won the cup in 2010, it's been a long road back to where I'll be next year. Absolutely delighted that I'll be making that jump with Nashville, not just because it's a wonderful organisation and it's run by people that have a terrific mindset and values, and I'm sure when we get to that point, there's going to be some tremendous support. If it had been with someone else, that would have been great, but I'm absolutely elated that it will be with Nashville.
Okay, Gary, I got to ask. Ian Ayre's last hire before you was Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. I am a huge Liverpool fan, so this puts you in outstanding company, at least in my book. Does that up the pressure for you at all? Have the expectations been raised because of it?
Well, I think putting my name in the same category as Jurgen's is probably a little bit too much. It's great that Ian's dealt with such big names, but I certainly don't. I don't see the scenario even similar. What I do know is that Ian's a fantastic person to work with. I think the experiences that Ian has had around such big names as Jurgen can be nothing but helpful. What I know to this point is that we have a terrific staff. The relationship between myself, Mike Jacobs, and Ian is a very, very good one. And I think we all bring something very different to the table. And, of course, Ian's experience at the very, very top level is extremely helpful at particular points in time. Mike's knowledge of not just the MLS, but rules, the cap, regulations, his in-depth appreciation of the collegiate level is nothing short of remarkable, really. He is a complete mind of knowledge and information. So there's a lot of help. It's a really good staff, and of course, Ian leading that is terrific.
We've seen building culture be so important for expansion teams where everyone gets thrown together at the last minute. We saw it be important for you in bringing in Kosuke Kimura and Matt Pickens to your team to bring what you've done in the past forward. How do you build on that in 2019 here in USL and try and bring that into 2020 MLS?
Well, I think first and foremost, there's plenty of other expansion groups that we have the opportunity to look at in the past and try and take the very best pieces out of that if we need to. There are teams that have done it extremely well, of course, and there are other teams that have not quite got it right. So I think a group like ourselves certainly have some nice experience there to draw on. In terms of building a culture, I think you're spot on. If you look at the very best groups, those groups have got a core of individuals, of experience, of characters that have got good appreciation of MLS. They've been there and they've done it. They've probably got a balance of players that have got a good youthful base, have got good potential, have got room to grow. And, when you bring that combination together with personalities that are determined, that have got, some real passion about their game and about the city, because that's important too. And when you say that there's either a winning group or a successful group, some of those qualities sometimes are a little bit overlooked, but those groups have them. They have all those qualities, and of course we'll be striving for that.
All right, Gary, this is a different MLS than the one that you knew when you were with the Rapids and won MLS Cup with them. In your perspective, how has the league evolved and changed since that time?
Well, there's been a lot more investment in the league, that is for sure. If you look at the profile around the world now, it has gone to another level. And I think that is born out of some much more entertaining and technical play. If you look at the best groups, they have a combination of good talent and skill level. They've got maybe even a tactical appreciation and more of a front foot approach. If you take the likes of Red Bull and of course Atlanta most recently, there's a real energetic and positive approach to their play. But also if you look at teams like Kansas, who have been very, very successful and probably started when I left the league at the start of 12, they've shown a slightly different approach, but have been roster strong, have made good deals. Peter's done a fabulous job of reconstructing that side and taking out really big pieces and replacing them very well. But I think the vein that runs through all of them is that, they've managed to evolve and add individuals that are constantly making this league better and better, whether that's technically or athletically. And, with the experience of the coaches involved, you've got a great combination.
Ian Ayre says the club will be in the top tier of MLS spending, Gary. He said that on this very show last week. You'll have a bigger budget probably than you've ever had as a head coach here. You've sort of been known, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, for more of a pragmatic style. Do you expect that more money, better players, we expect with more money, will mean a more dynamic style than maybe you've played in the past?
I don't necessarily think that money often relates to a more positive or energetic approach. I do think that you can, if you've got a better budget and you've got more resources, you can actually bring players in that with that, real positive and progressive approach have maybe got a better technical ability and maybe brighter minds, because you're looking towards the top end of recruitment then. The game in general is not massively different. Yes, there are teams that do things in a different way, but I do honestly think if I look at what we've been in the last year, my stats in the league in USL, of course, at the level below, have been a good defending side again. But it hasn't stopped us being very, very creative. What we lacked was a clinical finisher. And when you get to that top level, my hope is that we'll be able to attract players that make a difference, that are capable of winning games with less opportunity and chances. And when you do have those periods in a game where you're on top, we can make a difference. It doesn't stop you still wanting to be a difficult team to play against. It doesn't stop you from being a competitive team. It just means with better resources, you've got players that can take advantage of other teams. So, yes, if that's the case, I hope to have that. And if I can, that would be wonderful. If I can't, then, we'll cut our cloth accordingly and we'll still be very difficult to play against. And I would imagine as successful as we can be. And it was proved in Denver, and I'm sure it can be proved again.
For most of the expansion teams we've seen in MLS over the last few years, there's been that first DP signing a lot of times 5-6 months before they're going to enter MLS, which is the cornerstone. Carlos Vela, Miguel Almiron, David Villa. As the coach, you're going to sit down with these players that you're recruiting and looking at. What are you looking for? What are the questions you're asking? What's the personalities that you're looking for? What's the age profile, the style? You mentioned those clinical finishers.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I think you dig in probably a tad too deep at this point in time as to the actual specifics of a group and an individual. Mike Jacobs will be leading that charge on the recruitment front, and there'll be a lot of players that I'm sure will want to join us in Nashville. It's a terrific city. And coming into the league, as you've just stated, I hope we have the type of resource the league offer up anyway. A lot of gam and tam money to try and build that group out. What I will say is we want to be a competitive team. So therefore, in terms of individuals coming in, of course we want those players to be players that can be around for a while, not just a bit of a sparkle for a season or two and then they're gone. If we can bring players in that have got future to the group and we can build them into the city and the team, then that would be wonderful. It will all revolve around individuals that are available, the type of opportunity we have to bring them here, obviously the stage of contracts that they're in if they're outside of the US, and then we'll sit down and we'll try and piece that together with how we want to play and what type of product and maybe tactical shape we want to put on the field. But one thing I will say is we have a terrific opportunity here, as all expansion groups do, to put together a side for the very first time with good resources and with a clean slate to really build a foundation from that point on. And if we don't get it right by bringing in players that might be great to look at on paper and good for people to write about, but if they're not the right bodies for the team at that point in time and to build for the future, then that will harm everyone further down the line. So we're going to have to take stock of everything that's thrown at us. I'm sure there'll be some great choices out there, and it's our job, all of our job at the club, to make the right ones.
Gary, I want to talk a little bit about the supporters. I have been lucky enough to spend some significant time with the roadies down there in Nashville, and they are as passionate as they come. I just want to ask you, what has impressed you most about the soccer culture that's developing in Nashville right now?
Well, if you think about the fact that just a year ago, we'd not really kicked a ball in anger in the Pro League. We had two terrific games here that led towards our expansion in MLS, which was the Gold Cup and the Manchester City Tottenham game, and the fans came out in their droves. What we've seen is that's really galvanised a movement in the city. As you said, the support's been wonderful for us in the USL. We had two games at Nissan last year that drew nearly 20,000, which was terrific. And of course, for all of our home games, we get a hardcore of support there, which is really given a heartbeat to the support that we get. And the hope is that as we move forward and the MLS group comes together and there's signings and there's a momentum that's built towards the start of 2020, that there's going to be an even bigger wave of enthusiasm towards the start of that season. And, we can see a group of supporters that are as passionate and as enthusiastic as we've seen, but in greater numbers.
They'll be seeing their next head coach in MLS on the sideline as well, Gary Smith. Congratulations, Gary. If you want to watch Nashville SC as they prepare for MLS, you can do so in the USL Championship. The first 2 games at home. This Saturday against Loudoun United, and then they're going to take on St. Louis FC the next time around. We look forward to watching you in USL and in MLS, Gary. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much. Great to speak to everyone.
Are you watching the games or just looking at the stats? Email the show at extratime@mlssoccer.com, tweet at extratime, or text the Hot Take hotline with any questions or reactions.
Listen, when you hear things like that, being a goalkeeper in this league or across the world, there's something about being part of the goalkeepers union, having respect for your colleagues, having respect for the position, carrying yourself in a professional way. Some of us maybe lack in some of those areas.
Back now in Extra Time, driven by Continental into the mailbag here, 401-2060-MLS, Extra Time at MLSsoccer.com. We have some mail about the Guzan Hamid beef, but I just want everyone here to think back on that segment. And Bobby, I hope you took notes because that is the best way for you to improve your English accent. Just listen to Gary Smith and imitate him.
I thought Gary was imitating me personally.
Oh, God. No. Oh, by the way, if you haven't seen Bobby Warshaw FC, his new fan account on Twitter, go check that out as well. What do you got?
Matty T from Montreal. Hamid couldn't carry Guzan's proverbial jockstrap. 10 years in EPL versus complete failure in Denmark. 1 game. If only his game could match his confidence, he might have something. Matty.
Wow.
I just want to say that's the first time I've heard the word jockstrap in a long time.
I know, me too.
That's got to feel like they're not de jour.
I forgot about those.
They're not de jour anymore. Look, I like this. I'm okay with it. And Bill came back and he said, look, I didn't call him terrible. I just said I thought I was better than he was. And I guess I'm not a member of the Goalkeepers Union, so I don't know the rules. Are there rules, Bobby? Did they have certain rules in their union?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing like the Goalkeepers Union. It's this weird, unexplainable thing, but it's a real thing where players do stick together. And it's not quite as bound as some goalkeepers will have you believe, because if you are on the bench, you're not necessarily cheering for your teammate, but there's definitely specific rules that apply only and specifically to people within that Goalkeepers Union.
Okay.
I don't really care.
Goalkeepers
don't count.
But on the flip side, what is Bill Hamid supposed to say? The guy gave a real honest answer.
Also,
let him give a real honest answer.
Also, Hamid followed up by saying, I didn't say Guzan was bad. I just said I was better. I never said anything negative about Guzan, which is fair because in Bill Hamid's head, he's the best goalie in the world, so he's better than everyone.
Well, Matt Doyle said it on Mass Confrontation. That's what he was like, you want your goalkeeper to say that. You want your goalkeeper to say that he's better than the other guy. Of course you do. I wouldn't want my goalkeeper to be like, no, he's better.
Suze, how are you as a podcaster compared to Matt Doyle?
I'm the best.
Okay.
The best, Bobby.
Let's not even compare her to Matt Doyle because it's just not even the same. Like, there's a reason why we don't invite Doyle on Thursdays anymore.
Let's jump into the mailbag because I forgot that we had something epic here. Austin from Philly emailed in to complain about the fantasy setup, something that Ben Bear did wrong. Then followed up with, in an unrelated note, I'm a medical student, and I was studying the other day. I came across a compound that's been known to cause headaches, weakness, nausea, and vomiting. A feverish illness of sorts, if you will. That compound, CCL4.
What?
I found CCL fever. Hopefully Atlanta and SKC don't blow it for MLS tonight. That was sent yesterday from Austin and Philly. He has found CCL fever.
CCL fever is real. It's real.
Is a thing.
Box to Box Pete Brownell, who came up with CCL fever, we'd like to get him on the show to explain where that came from. We will, if MLS makes a run to the semis, we'll get him on. I make that promise right now. We're running out of time. We have to do the Crest explanation. Go.
Adam Reynolds, he said he's surprised that we didn't do one, and I agree. So he sent it in for us. So if you look behind me, the smooth, orange shine around the ball represents the pervasive baldness on this show, as well as a reminder to bring the heat on all Baron tees, as Bobby points out. Then you have the 6 lightning bolts, as are a tribute to the roots of the 6 legendary personalities of the past. Nick Fershaw, Lawless, Sagini, Simon Borg, Victoria Borg, and the rarest guest of all, the logical insane Simon Borg. It also reminds us that the defensive midfielder is the most important player on the field and is finally getting their due, as you can see by Bobby behind me.
Exactly.
And then one more. The fading of the lightning bolts obviously represents seeding the doubt in all you do, and the teal color scheme is a fervent indication of loyalties to come for Inter Miami and your East Coast bias in general.
What's our listener's name there that sent that in? Adam. We are going to put something very special together for you. I don't know what it is yet, but that is one of the best emails that we've ever had.
But he did follow up that email with his size for a shirt and his address, so I think he knows what he thinks we're going to put together for him.
Adam has learned one thing from this podcast, is that if he panders, which he did in that email, but in a very just entertaining way, we will give him free things.
And we have to close out on one last thing, a poem. We enter each year with our hopes on the climb. An MLS team's going to do it this time. Then results one by one make the fear settle in, and Liga MX snaps up every last win. The Red Bulls will win. Nope, they're down 2-0. Well, surely Atlanta, another buzz kill. Houston looked good, but then boy did they tank. At least Sporting put a road goal in the bank. The free space is still disappointment, we fear. Oh, please let the ending be different this year. We still have some hope, but we also feel dread. Our CCL fever might just end up dead.
Great delivery.
Oh, my God.
Beautiful delivery there. Yes, sir. Poetry slam straight from Terrible MLS Poems into the mouth of David Goss. That's it for us. Big thank you to Sam Stejskal, the Bird Dog, Gary Smith, the new head coach of Nashville SC, Susannah Collins, our record signing here at ETR. Dave
like
Goss,
a new signing.
Bobby Warshaw. I'm Andrew Wiebe. We will see you next time, everybody.
You're in the wrong profession.